Hey guys, LevelCap here, and yesterday I got to play Star Wars Battlefront at E3 for the first time. I played it on PS4 and it was an amazing experience, and I'm going to do my best to tell you objectively what happened during that experience, what I learned about the game, and how I feel about it so far. I was able to play 48-player Walker Assault on the PS4 and the co-op survival game mode where I teamed up with Darkness 429. Walker Assault was by far the coolest experience, and the first thing I will say, and probably one of the biggest issues I think that's on everybody's mind, is 48 players enough to make the battle feel really crazy and intense? People are saying that the trailer, the gameplay trailer that they released, is totally scripted to make it look more intense. I gotta say, that was not the feeling I got. There was plenty of action. I didn't spend one moment wondering where the action was or where the enemies were. I mostly spent my time trying to stay alive or trying to find cool battle pickups so I could try out different vehicles and weapons. We only had time to play one round. I'd say it lasted between 10 and 15 minutes. I was playing on the Empire side, so I was assaulting, going right along with our two giant AT-ATs. There was two classes to pick from on each side. One had a jetpack as an option and the other one had a force shield as an option. Then they both had different kinds of special weapons that you could use. As far as the primary weapons went, you could pick whatever primary weapon you wanted and then pick a different soldier class. Now, I don't believe they're technically different classes, but I think they're sort of different loadouts or different hands, if you will. The devs, I heard, calling them hands or something like that because it looks like your abilities in the lower right corner are actually playing cards. So it's like you're picking 3 different playing cards and that makes up your class style. And after the gaming session, I was speaking with one of the developers about the way he liked to play the game, and apparently you can equip like 2 grenades if that was something that you would want to do. So that seems pretty cool that you can really mix and match your playing cards to decide how you want to play the game. Now, the battle pickups really give you some unique advantages, and those little symbols, those little blue glowing symbols that you pass over on the battlefield as you walk by, give you special abilities. Now, you don't always know which abilities they're going to give you when you walk over one of the weapon pickups. The vehicle pickups, however, do have an emblem that indicates what kind of vehicle it is before you pick it up. They do have random spawns around the map though, so you can't necessarily just camp one type of vehicle pickup. Since I was playing Empire, I was able to get into the AT-AT, the AT-ST, and a TIE Fighter. Let's talk about the massive AT-AT first. Yes, it's on rails. You can't control it, so it's on its predetermined path as it walks through the battlefield. You can, however, aim the head in different directions and target different things. It's got 3 different types of weapons, and you got to use them quickly because you have a time limit while you are in the AT-AT. However, you can increase your time limit by killing the enemy. So if you're a good shot, you know how to use the AT-AT, you can stay in it for longer. If there's no targets to shoot at, or you start missing your targets, your time limit's going to run out. You're going to get kicked out back to the battlefield where you will essentially just reappear as a soldier. The 3 weapons at your disposal are a fast-firing laser that seems to be good for killing infantry, a slow-firing but heavy explosive laser that seems like it can take out armored installations or even do lots of splash damage to infantry, and then you can call in orbital strikes. So you have a lot of different weapons at your disposal, but you have to actually switch between the different weapon modes rather than just hitting a different button to fire a different weapon. So it slows down your transition between the weapons a little bit. However, a skilled player could probably do it pretty quickly. Now, after you pick up the vehicle battle pickup, you have to activate it by getting into an area where you're not going to get shot. Your soldier kneels down on the battlefield and you have to wait a few seconds before entering the vehicle without taking any damage. If you take damage during this process, it will reset your countdown timer. So just make sure you're in a safe location, then you can enter the vehicle and it just basically transports you into the vehicle after you activate it. Now, when I hopped into an AT-ST for the first time, I checked out the weapons. On the left side gun, it has a quick firing mortar that has a recharge time. You shoot all the mortar rounds at once. It looks like it could be really good for taking out large clusters of infantry at a range. And then on the right side, it seems to have a rocket that just fires in a straight line. As far as I can tell, I wasn't able to get a lot of testing, so it could have been a lock-on rocket, but when I shot it, it went in a straight line. And then your primary weapon is, of course, your dual laser cannons. Also, vehicles do not recharge health on their own, so you can't necessarily just peek out from behind a rock with the AT-ST, shoot a bit, take some damage, and then regen your health while behind cover. You've got a finite amount of health, but the devs are playing around with the idea of having battle pickups that can potentially heal some of the vehicles. So another player on the map might be able to pick up a battle pickup and use it to repair your vehicle. I don't know if this is definite, but it's an idea that they're playing with. As far as I can tell, I wasn't able to hop out of my vehicles at any point, so once you get into a TIE fighter or an ATST or whatever, you're in it for the long run. It doesn't look like anybody's going to be able to steal your vehicles either. That's not to say that vehicle stealing mechanics aren't going to be in the game at some point. I have no idea what kind of other cards are available or what kind of other battle pickups there are, or maybe, who knows, there's a Chewbacca hero class that can steal vehicles. I really don't know. I'm just letting you know what I saw while I was playing. Now, when I got into a TIE fighter for the first time, it spawned in mid-flight, high up in the air, and allowed me to kind of come down and do some strafing runs on some infantry below. It had some sort of boost function as one of my abilities, and the other ability seemed to be some sort of like ion missile or ion bomb. And although I never managed to successfully lock an enemy X-Wing or Snowspeeder, it did start to give me a lock-on symbol when I had them in my sights. So that is something to just keep in mind. It looks like there might be some air-to-air lock-on weapons, but it looked like they were pretty tricky to use. Like, you couldn't just lock on right away and fire it. It looked like you had to really be on somebody's tail to get a real lock. This rocket/bomb could also be dumbfired, and I used it to get a few infantry kills on the ground during some strafing runs. The maneuverability of the air vehicles at this point was very arcadey. I wasn't too impressed by it, but after speaking with some devs, they said, yeah, they're not even close to being in their finished state yet. So I imagine there's going to be a lot more tweaking. Now, how about that harpoon cable? Although I wasn't playing for the Rebel Alliance, we did see a training video before we went out to play the game, and it showed us the concept of harpooning an AT-AT. First, you have to take down its defenses using Y-wing attacks. The Y-wings bomb the AT-ATs. That takes down its defenses, and you can now deal damage to it with standard ground fire, or you can even harpoon the legs and trip it up with a Snowspeeder. Now, the harpoon process is semi-automated. Once you fly past the legs, you have the option to fire the harpoon cable, and then it basically puts you into an orbiting flight path, and then it kind of turns into a mini game where you have to keep a Snowspeeder icon in the middle of this bar that continuously shrinks. So you either have to hit up or down to make sure that your Snowspeeder is flying the right path. And I really don't like this aspect of the game because it sort of takes you out of the element of actually piloting a Snowspeeder. And when I look at games like, say, Shadows of the Empire on N64, you're still in full control of your Snowspeeder even while you're doing rings around the legs of an AT-AT. So if you could do it way back in an N64 game, I don't see why you shouldn't be able to do it in this next-gen epic Star Wars game. And when speaking to a developer about this particular concern of mine, they said that they wanted to make the game more accessible to everyone. So, I mean, that's one way to approach game design, and it's totally valid, but at the same time, I prefer a slightly higher skill gap, and if it is hard to take down an AT-AT with a tow cable, then maybe that should be reserved for players willing to spend more time flying Snowspeeders. I don't know. It's just something that I personally would like to have a slightly higher skill gap on. Now let's talk about the soldier abilities and the gunplay. How is the infantry combat? That's something that I was super interested in and super curious about. It does have a third-person mode. It seemed to be pretty easy to use this mode. I was using first-person mode a lot just because I was more comfortable with that, but I hear from a bunch of developers that even the hardcore first-person shooter developers were really opposed to using third-person. They ended up enjoying it a lot more in the long run. They've done a pretty darn good job with implementing it, I have to say. Now, as far as the weapons are concerned, they're actually a lot of fun to use. I thought the blasters were going to be slow and annoying for hitting long-range targets, but it was actually really enjoyable. Now, I was playing it sort of an E3 event, and perhaps the skill level there wasn't extremely high, but I didn't have any problem taking down targets at long range, close range. The time to kill seems a bit longer than, say, Battlefield 4, as in my opinion I think it should be, but not much longer. You can still down people pretty quickly, and it gives you enough time to react to, say, an ambush, especially when you're running with cool gadgets like your mobile shield that you can activate. Now, when you activate this, it absorbs incoming fire for a specific period of time, but you can't shoot out of it at your opponents. That would be a little overpowered, so it's a great way to either get away from your enemy, or, as I found, you can actually charge them with the mobile shield up and then basically melee kill them when you get really close. Now, as far as my testing goes, it looked like a melee kill was a one-shot kill, whether you punch them in the face or punch them from behind. I took down a bunch of people with melee kills, and it was a one-shot each time. They could have been hurt, but it didn't look like it. I didn't have anywhere near enough time to try out the different weapons and give you some comparisons between them. I'll just say that I liked all of the guns that I used, and they were more than capable of taking down enemy threats. Now, how about the game mode Walker Assault? It's pretty damn fun. Nobody at the game mode actually knew how to play it, myself included, but apparently the rebels have to capture these little uplink points, and that will call in Y-wings, and those will disable the AT-ATs, giving the rebels an opportunity to take them out. You got to take out both AT-ATs to win the round, and if you don't, they'll eventually get to the power generator at the end of the level and blow it up. So there's like kind of 4 main stages to it, although it's a seamless transition between that, I guess you could say, and the spawns seem to just kind of naturally transition as the AT-ATs progress down the battlefield. So you're always kind of fighting around these AT-ATs that are blowing things up, and when somebody's not in the AT-AT driver's seat, it seems like it's just kind of autonomously shooting at different targets. The battle itself changes pretty dynamically, and one of the coolest things about it is that vehicle spawns, since they're based on battle pickups, the frequency or the types of battle pickups change as you progress through the battlefield itself. So basically, you might not have any sort of aerial vehicles at the very beginning. The first few capture points that you need to get to were very infantry intensive, and then slowly, more vehicles started getting added to the fray. Then you get close to the Hoth base, and you have the option of fighting inside of the Hoth base or outside of the Hoth base in certain trenches. So you have a lot of different options on how you want to play through the ever-changing map. And it's kind of like a game of Battlefield Rush, but I gotta say, a hell of a lot more fun. It's also really cool seeing the rebels hop into their different turrets that are littered throughout the trenches in Hoth, and just watching them blow away AT-STs and mow down infantry and stuff like that. You can also flank up behind them and take them out, and one of the Imperial troops actually has a lock-on rocket launcher that's pretty darn good at taking out the turrets. Now, as I mentioned before, I was also able to play the co-op survival game mode, and this mode was limited to only 6 waves for when we played it, as I'm guessing to go through all 15 waves would actually take quite a while, and they just didn't have time to let people play that many waves. I think the difficulty on it was dumbed down quite a bit just so we could actually beat the game mode and have fun, since everybody's learning the game for the first time. Speaking to a developer there, I learned that there's going to be multiple difficulty modes to pick from on this, and there's probably also going to be sort of a time trial system where they keep track of your scores and stuff like that, because apparently within the dev team they're already competing with each other to see who can get the best time at eliminating all 15 waves. And frankly, it seems like a fun little distracting game mode. Clearly not as epic as Walker Assault, and by far I had a lot more fun playing Walker Assault, but this would be a great little distraction to play with one friend. And speaking of one friend, that seems to be tied in pretty heavily to the spawn system, or maybe even just the theme of Battlefront in general. When we were playing Walker Assault, you could either spawn back at your general team's spawn location, or you could actually spawn on your buddy who is in the battlefield. Very similar to the most recent Medal of Honor game in that regard. It doesn't appear that there's going to be any sort of squads in this game, and frankly, it doesn't seem like it needs that. This is not going to be a Battlefield game. I think a lot of people have been worried about that, but after playing it, I gotta say it really is its own thing. Also, having spoken with some devs, they are focusing a lot on the matchmaking system. They really don't want to recreate some of the problems that, say, Battlefield has had, where there's a lot of imbalanced game modes, tons of high-level players on one team just destroying the other team. Apparently, they've implemented some really good team balancing systems and matchmaking systems to try and avoid this situation altogether. So if they can actually do that, then that is probably one of the biggest benefits that this game has over any previous DICE multiplayer game. Now, of course, somebody's going to ask me about the netcode, and I gotta say, I just didn't play the game enough to really be able to notice the minute details of the netcode or kill trades or anything like that. I didn't have any kill trades The combat seemed to flow pretty fluidly. I didn't notice anything weird going on, although Darkness429 did manage to get his snowspeeder stuck in the back of an AT-AT, which was pretty funny. But other than that, I didn't notice any sort of weird internet issues, and I wouldn't expect to, especially playing at E3 against a whole bunch of other players all plugged into the wall right next to me. So it's not a particularly great situation to stress the netcode to begin with. Now, there really is a ton more detail, and if I really wanted to, I could add another 10-20 minutes to this video just talking about every little gadget and every little thing that I saw, but I think I went over all the pretty big things. Hopefully this gives you enough food for thought. I'm really happy with my experience there. I was laughing, I was having a really good time, really enjoying it a lot, and I am freaking pumped for the launch of this game. I'm not particularly concerned if this game is living up to its predecessor's feature list, because I personally believe that game bloating is one of the main reasons why games become imbalanced and unfun to play. My only concern really is that there's a lot of signs so far that suggest they're trying to make this game overly accessible and maybe a little bit too newbie friendly, to the point where the skill gap just might not be high enough for the players who really want to sink their teeth into this game and become like epic masters of Star Wars Battlefront. I just don't know if the time you put into this game is going to allow you to be that much better of a player, simply because it is just such a novice friendly, simplistic game on many levels. That being said, I was having a blast the whole time I played it. I haven't played it enough to really make that kind of conclusion. It's just sort of a feeling from what I've seen so far. That being said, I am still looking forward to playing Star Wars Battlefront more than anything else I saw at E3, so I'm still pumped and super excited to play this game. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll keep you updated on any future Star Wars Battlefront news, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.